Hello, all my fringy friends out there. Welcome back to That's So Fringy podcast. I'm Rick.
I'm Kristen.
And we are here tonight to continue in our series on false flags.
Woohoo!
We're missing one of our hosts, Bethany. She's out, just doing baby stuff, building the baby currently. And so she's got a lot going on, trying to breathe every once in a while, trying to be able to move around. For those of you that have been through what she's been through, you know what we're talking about. But today, we wanted to go over the Route 91, which was the festival that they were having in Vegas with Jason Aldean in 2017 when chaos erupted. Most of us remember this. It was October 1st of 2017. And then they try to call it the 1 October event, right, in the news and everything like that. But we like to refer to it as the Route 91 Jason Aldean concert because we like to make sure people are realizing what we're talking about, right? It's a way of kind of shifting your mind away from something because you're like, I don't really know what it is that they're talking about. But so we're talking about the shooting in Vegas. So Kristen's done a lot of research. We've both looked into this, watched a couple of documentaries. We're trying to bring you as much factual evidence as possible. And we're going to do like we did with the last one on 9/11. And we're going to go through the official narrative. And then we're going to walk our way through some of the discrepancies and some of the things that don't make sense. So with that, Kristen.
Here we go.
What'd we figure out?
Okay, so again, we're going to go over the kind of the story that got put out for everybody. The official narrative is what we're going to start with. So on October 1st, 2017, there was a mass shooting when 64-year-old Stephen Paddock opened fire on the crowd attending the Route 91 Harvest Music Festival on the Las Vegas Strip. So he was on the 32nd floor of the Mandalay Bay Hotel. So I don't know if people have been to Vegas or if you haven't been to Vegas. This is kind of like a concert venue that is it's underneath the Mandalay Bay. So from those upper windows, you can see this whole area. According to the narrative, he fired more than 1,000 rounds. He killed 60 people and wounded at least 413. Then, of course, there was trampling and people trying to get out and kind of secondary wounding because it was just chaos all around there. So that brought the injured to more like 867. Now, these numbers, for whatever reason, they change. So there's not like a firm number of how many people were wounded, how many people died, all of that stuff. But this is the closest we can get for the official part. Let's see. So about an hour later, after the shooting started, he was found dead in his room from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. The motive for this is still officially undetermined. That's what they have it listed as.
No idea.
So undetermined. So this is a little bit. Rick knows tons about firearms, but I'm just going to go through really quickly, and then maybe you can comment on some of them. So supposedly he had 24 firearms. He had 14 that were a .223 caliber AR-15, and then he had 8, which was a .308 caliber AR-10, and then he had a .308 caliber bolt action rifle and a .38 caliber revolver.
So these are assault rifles, right? They're used in military purposes for the most part. They also found lots of 100-round clips, 60-round clips. We know that there is a company out there that makes these, and they're hard to get in certain areas of the country and not so hard to get in other areas of the country. Just depends on where you live and what your firearms rules and regulations are. But he basically had so many firearms up there and so many rounds that he could have been firing for days.
So this is technically still the deadliest mass shooting by a single gunman in American history. It really focused a lot of attention on, like you were saying, the firearm laws, and more specifically in regards to bump stocks. So do you mind just explaining a little bit of how because I remember the Vegas shooting and bump stocks. That's pretty much what I remember from this shooting. Do you mind explaining a little bit how those work?
Yeah, the official narrative talked a lot about bump stocks, and it's because when they got up there, and this is not to get ahead of ourselves, but when they got up there, the bump stocks that they were finding on these weapons was a way for them to talk about how it sounded like machine gun fire, because with the particular weapons that he was in possession of, they only have typically a 3-round burst. So you can put it into fire, you can put it into safe, or you can put it into 3-round bursts. Now, they can be modified, but they can't be sold in America on fully auto. So unless, it's a special dealer and a special thing, or if it's an illegal arms trade, which...
Right. As we know, a lot of firearm sales are not exactly above board. So the difference between a semi-automatic and an automatic is that an automatic, you just pull the trigger and they go boom, 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 and they don't stop until you're done with your
and these weapons
ammunition?
Are semi-automatic, yes. Okay. And so semi-automatic, you can do one, you pull the trigger, the cycling of the action, everything happens, the bolt goes back, comes back, ejects the casing, loads a new round, just like a pistol does.
So for every bullet that comes out of a semi-automatic, you pulled the trigger independently every time.
And so on a bump stock, it basically uses that recoil to then hit this stock and bump into your shoulder, and then just basically ratchets the trigger on your arm as almost. So
it uses your own momentum. It goes back and hits your body, and which slingshots it forward, which pushes your finger into the trigger, and it's just like back and forth, back and forth.
Correct. So it basically turns a firearm into an automatic weapon if you know what you're doing, if you know how to use it, if you're good at it, if you've practiced with it. But it's not going to give you the same automatic machine gun fire that you would get from an M60 or a 249 Golf or some kind of a machine gun belt-fed weapon. You're just not, because the reason that those weapons are belt fed is because you have to have it has to be perfectly loaded every single round, or else you're going to get a malfunction after malfunction after malfunction. And the reason that most serious gun owners don't really like bump stocks is because they don't work that well.
They're very unreliable. I mean, your shoulder has to be in the exact right position, your weapon has to be in the exact right position, and your finger has to be in the exact right position in order for it to really work. I mean, there's people that I was watching some videos on how they work because I was curious, and there was people that they're like big gun enthusiasts, and they were like, these are garbage. I mean, they just don't. They're not effective. You're actually faster. It would be faster to just use your finger and do it that way.
Yeah. So, when you hear that, the main narrative's talking about bump stocks and how it was a big deal and how that's how he was able to shoot these semi-automatic weapons so quickly, was because he was using bump stocks. But I think that's bunk.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense. So
essentially, this whole thing about bump stocks came up. So in the U.S. Justice Department in December of 2018, let's see, the constitutionality of so there was a ban put on the bump stocks, essentially, is what ended up happening. So then it came out that the constitutionality of banning something that is an inanimate object, essentially. So it's been under review until 2022, when the U.S. Supreme Court declined to hear the case. So essentially, it's still a law because the people that said this isn't right, like you shouldn't ban these for everybody, they left it basically unheard this whole time, and then the Supreme Court just declined to have it.
Yeah.
So there it is.
Yep, bump stocks. I wouldn't recommend them. They're garbage, but you can still buy them if you want to, because they're not against the law.
Yep. So the Mandalay Bay, which is the building that Stephen Paddock was in, is 43 stories, and it overlooks this Las Vegas Village, which is a 15-acre lot It's used for outdoor performances, kind of like a concert venue. It's 15 acres, so that's a lot bigger than I thought it would be.
Yeah, it's pretty big. It's right across the street from the Luxor.
Yeah. So then starting in 2014, the venue was used for this Route 91 Harvest Festival, which is a country music festival, is basically what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, this year that the shooting happened in 2017, the event ran from September 29th to October 1st, and there was over 22,000 attendees on just the final day. So there was a lot of people there. A lot of people crammed into a little space.
Right.
Which will come into play later when we'll talk a little bit about they have to put up security fences because it's a closed concert. You have to pay basically to get in. So they don't want people just walking in. So there was a lot of security fencing that was oddly placed maybe to kind of hold people in. But we'll go over a little bit of that later, and then discrepancies. So let's talk a little bit about Stephen Paddock, because he's got a very, well, let's just say upfront. Mm-hmm. I don't think that he did this. I don't think that this all happened the way that the official narrative says, and I don't think that the evidence points that way either. So we'll let you guys decide when we get done with it. But we do want to go over kind of the official narrative of what they released about Stephen Paddock. So he's 64 years old. He was a IRS auditor, which is interesting. He also he ended up buying a ton of real estate in California. I don't know if he was flipping houses and making money, or if he was just buying and selling real estate and making money. But he did have he had a apartment complexes where he would make, you make a lot of money when you own those. Sure. So
especially in California.
Yeah, exactly. He was living in a retirement community in Mesquite, Nevada. He was twice divorced. He had a long-term girlfriend who also comes into play in a little bit. He has no known children. He's the son of Benjamin Paddock, this is interesting because I have a lot more on him later on, but Benjamin Paddock was his father. He was a bank robber. He was on the FBI most wanted list from 1969 to 1977, which I believe is the longest anybody's been consecutively been on the FBI most wanted list.
Oh, that's a long time.
That is a long time. But I have more about how all that happened later on. Stephen Paddock's only interactions with law enforcement before this day was essentially traffic citations. That was it. He never had any run-ins with the law. He never had any issues with, domestic violence, none of that stuff. He didn't have any.
A blank slate.
Yeah, he didn't have any, supposed anger issues or whatever. Things that you look at. He was a high-stakes gambler so essentially he placed bets high enough that he would go around to these different hotels and get his rooms comped for him. Mm-hmm. So if you go, he went down to the casino, lost $1 million playing video poker, and ended up getting these rooms at the Mandalay Bay comp to him, which just basically means we're going to give you a free room because you spent a ton of money in our casino. And the rooms are that's not how they make their money anyway. That's why you can get a hotel room we went to Vegas not that long ago, and our hotel room was super cheap, $30 a night for a really big, nice
and
room.
They want you to be out spending money in the casinos and buying this and buying that, and just
the rooms is not where they make their money.
Right.
So anyway, he was I'm not, let's be honest, I'm not good at gambling. I'm actually permanently grounded from gambling because I'm so terrible at it.
You're not good.
So I know. Rick can literally go in and make hundreds of dollars, and I sit down at the machine and it's gone in a minute. So anyway, Rick does the gambling if we need to do any gambling.
Yeah.
So how does one become, I've heard of people, becoming professional poker players, where you're sitting down with other people and, high stakes poker players can make a lot of money, right?
Sure.
But video poker, I've never played it because I really have terrible luck. So I've never played it. But I'm assuming that they're not going to make a machine, knowing what I know about slot machines and all the other stuff, they're not going to make a machine that loses them money. So
not enough money that's gonna, hurt them. They have a certain probably bottom
overall, line. Exactly. Overall, they're gonna make money on these machines. That's what they're designed to do. But he was supposedly making like millions of dollars playing video poker. I hadn't actually heard of anybody being a professional video poker player. Professional poker player, sure. And I've watched the celebrity poker games and interesting, right? But
I think there's a lot of people that play online, which might be what they're talking about, where you play online games. Like, some people play Call of Duty, you play all these different games online with different people. I mean, you can even play Farkle with people online, Sudoku or whatever,
Farkle?
Yeah, you heard me.
Did I catch a Farkle in there?
You did. And so when you have all those type of options and type of games, you also have this video poker where you play online with people, but you're actually placing bets, and you can do that online. So he might have been.
That makes sense, because according to casino hosts and people that work down in the casinos, he was familiar to them, but he wasn't familiar to any of the high stakes poker players. So he wasn't playing with other humans. He was playing on a screen.
Right. Yeah. He was playing probably as an avatar online, a certain screen name or whatever, which, gives him autonomy and gives him the ability to move cash here and there, in nefarious ways if he wants to, depending on who's looking or who's doing what.
Or who's not. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that he, according to the people that knew him at the casino, he kept to himself. He was quiet. He was a heavy drinker. So I don't know. He doesn't really, like, not that I'm a profiler, but he doesn't really fit the profile of somebody that would do this. But we'll get further in.
Well, and a lot of his social media and stuff like that, from what I've read, is talking about him being a Trump supporter hater. So he hates those people that follow Trump. He hates the far right, and just goes against that whole narrative. And so that was kind of, I don't know if that was how he actually felt or if that was just part of his persona. Who knows? Because if this was orchestrated or a fake situation, as we're claiming it to be, then that would be a convenient truth, right? As Al Gore would say, that would be a convenient truth if they were able to pin him to, being a far right hater, therefore a country music concert where there's probably a lot of Trump supporters, a lot of people that would be on that side that he would dislike, that would be very convenient if that was the case. But who knows if that's how he actually felt, or if he was just a patsy altogether.
That's what I think.
Yeah.
It's kind of sad, but so he had lost a significant amount of his wealth in the couple of years before the shooting. So, but he had actually paid off all of his gambling debts. All of that stuff was paid off before the shooting happened. In the year prior to the shooting, his girlfriend had reported, she said, he had some changes in his behavior. He was maybe a little bit more isolated. His demeanor changed a little bit. And she made a comment that they were no longer intimate with each other. So they were boyfriend and girlfriend, but as we get further into this, you'll have to tell me if you think it's more of a business relationship kind of a thing.
Sure.
Like a mutually beneficial arrangement. So they obviously, after this all happened, they went through all of his computer. They went through all of his stuff. There was a hard drive missing somehow from his hotel room. So it's just, there's so much weird stuff that happened in his hotel room, but his hard drive to his computer was missing. But they did go over the stuff that was at his house, and he had, according to them, he'd researched other large venues in the months prior to the shooting. So he had gone on and looked at other large venues. And one of them was the Lollapalooza Festival, which is in Chicago. It was in August of 2017. So this happened in October. This was in August. And he actually booked a room that overlooked this event, but he didn't end up using the room. So he didn't actually end up going and staying there for whatever reason. His internet searches included SWAT weapons, ballistics chart 308, SWAT Las Vegas, do police use explosives? So he had some stuff in his search history that was probably a little weird, but I'll be honest, if people look at my search history, they would probably think it was a little weird because I'm just a curious person and I'm always looking at
cats.
Who knows what? Yeah, a lot of pictures of cats, a lot of videos of cats. I do like cats.
It happens.
I'm like a crazy cat lady. I know. So he gets to the Mandalay Bay and checked in on September 25th. So he was there, what was that, 6 days before he'd been there. So it's not like he just checked in that night and this all happened. So he booked into room 32-135, which was the room that was comped to him because he had, lost so much money in video poker, which is on the 32nd floor. So the rooms 32-135, I'm not going to keep saying that. I'm just going to say room 135 and 134. Those are the two rooms that he ended up with. So 4 days later, he checked into the adjoining room, which was 134. And it, was kind of one of those rooms that is connected in between. So he had a suite that was like a big, I don't know if it was a corner suite, but it was definitely a big suite that he had. And then this room next to it, which was just a standard room, it looked like. Because they usually, put the suites, if you've spent much time in hotels, they put the suites kind of on the four corners and then they have just regular rooms in between. So that's kind of how the layout was. And that room he actually checked into, I believe that room was comped to his girlfriend, which is interesting because she wasn't there. So funny story about the girlfriend. He had actually sent her, she's from the Philippines, so he had actually sent her back to the Philippines to visit her family that prior to any of this happening. And he had wired her, he wired her $100,000 in two separate transactions that were $50,000 each. So he sends her to the Philippines and then sends her $100,000 before this all happened. But somehow she gets comped room 134 at the hotel.
And she's not even there.
And she's not there.
Okay.
Both of these suites and the rooms overlooked this Las Vegas Village area, so you could see it from both of them. They were on the same side. He was so in the days prior to the shooting, he spent time gambling, drinking. Usually at night, he seemed like he was a lot more of a night owl, and probably slept a lot more during the day, which is pretty common for people in the Vegas scene. That's kind of I don't think that's unusual. Anyway, I should say. He had, a lot of interactions with the hotel employees. They were all, quote, normal in nature. So there was nothing crazy about his behavior. He wasn't acting weird. Cell phone data show that he made multiple trips back to his house in Mesquite. I don't know how far that is, but he made several trips from Vegas to his house in Mesquite and came back.
During that time frame?
Right, during that time, from when he checked in. On September 25th, he had a bellman help him bring 5 suitcases to his room. Nothing seemed weird there. He wasn't acting weird. And
they didn't look like regular suitcases to me.
No, they were large. I mean, the bellhop had to get a cart to go get them. Yeah. And I believe I read somewhere that they used a service elevator to get them up. Mm-hmm. So I'm not sure if that was just because of the size of, I don't know why that would happen.
If you guys want to look back at the pictures and try to see, because you may or may not be able to find it. I'll try to find it on the internet as well, but some of this stuff is hard to find. But look at the image of the bellhop on the security camera bringing up those cases, and they're quite large cases. They look like they would be more like equipment than a large amount of clothes.
Right. Yeah, that's what it looked like to me.
Yeah.
So that was on September 25th. So on September 26th, the next day, he brought 7 more suitcases in. And I mean, when I say suitcases, we're talking cases like duffel bag suitcases, whatever, all kinds of
Right.
big things. And then on the 28th, he brought in 2 more bags.
Okay.
So it's not like he brought in all 24 of these weapons at one time, it sounds like. It sounds like he was kind of going home and maybe getting more and then bringing them back. I don't know. So then on the 30th, on September 30th, he brought 6 more bags in. And then in October 1st, which was the day of the shooting, he brought 2 more bags in.
You know, my question is, in the hospitality industry, like, at what point does this start to get weird? You know,
Right.
Is it 17 bags? Is it 24 bags? Like, how many bags does this one guy have to bring into this room? How long is he staying there?
Right. Because even then, it didn't flag anything. They wouldn't, had this event not happened, they probably wouldn't have we wouldn't even be talking about how many bags this guy brought in and what day. So
Right.
it wasn't like it flagged anything. He wasn't acting suspiciously. He wasn't, being weird. He was just bringing bags in. And then on September 30th, he placed the do not disturb sign on his door for both rooms. So before that, it sounds like housekeeping was coming in. He was getting lots of room service deliveries. I mean, all that stuff was happening like normal. Like, a person that I feel like was setting up to do something of this magnitude, they wouldn't be wanting anybody in their room the entire time.
Sure.
Like, it would be locked down. They would be like eating out of a vending machine, or, you know what I mean? Like, they're not getting room service delivered. I don't know. It just doesn't seem right.
Well, and if you're trying to be, I mean, I guess if your end goal is to shoot yourself and not try to get away or anything like that, then maybe you would be a little careless. You would be like, whatever, it is what it is. I'm gonna
like,
die tomorrow anyway. Yeah. But you never know. I mean, I just think, how many times does this type of thing happen in these big hotels in Vegas to where the workers don't even think anything of it?
Well, there's a lot of people that will go. I mean, not that I know a ton about the inner workings of Vegas, but I was reading up on a lot of people will go to Vegas. They will rent these big suites, and whatever product they're trying to sell, maybe they're a startup company, maybe they're a firearms salesman, they'll rent these big suites and they'll use that as a kind of a middle ground to lay all their stuff out and say, come and look, see what I have. They'll have these kind of high priority clients come in that way, especially for some of the more nefarious stuff, because Stephen Paddock's not going to be like, hey, do you want to come to my garage and look at all my firearms? If he's illegally dealing firearms with people, that he's not going to do that, and he's not the only one. Apparently this happens quite often. People go there and they use Vegas as kind of a mutual ground to sell whatever they're selling, whether it's people or whether it's weapons or whether it's drugs or whatever. That's how a lot of this stuff happens, which I didn't really even think about until I was researching this. But
yeah, that's wild. It's wild what you can get away with in this world if you're connected to the right people, right? I mean, if you want to be nefarious and you want to be a bad actor, all you got to do is connect yourself to other higher level bad actors, or even peer bad actors, and you can find the underbelly of any type of a town, of a city, I mean, I'm sure our town probably has a nasty underbelly that we don't know about,
Well, or some of us know about.
Or we know, we're just not saying anything.
Just kidding. No, but I'm thinking, like, when I'm looking at like a Facebook Marketplace ad or whatever, I'm looking at the background of people's houses. Like, if I'm looking at let's say a recliner, because I've been recently, looking at a lot of recliners since we're having a baby. One. So I'm looking at like the carpet, and I'm looking at how the house looks, and if it's trashy, like I'm not even going to the next phase. I don't know if that makes me just weird, or I don't know, but that's how I decide whether I even want to send a message of, is this still available?
Yeah, it makes sense. And if you had and if they were in
judging, I guess, in that, posting. But,
sometimes you got a profile.
But that's what I mean. If you're going to Vegas and you're renting a big suite, nobody knows what your actual real life is like, because
Right. Want to make a podcast? Spotify's got a platform that lets you make one super easily, then distribute it anywhere and everywhere. You can even earn money all in one place for free. It's called Spotify for Podcasters, and here's how it works.
Spotify for Podcasters lets you record and edit podcasts right from your phone or computer, so no matter what your setup is like, you can start creating today.
Then you can go ahead and distribute your podcast to Spotify and anywhere else podcasts are heard.
Video podcasts are also available on Spotify. And when you want to take the conversation with your fans to the next level, Q&A polls are the best way to get them talking.
With Spotify for Podcasters, you can earn money in a variety of ways, including ads and podcast subscriptions.
And best of all, it's totally free with no catch. We've been using Spotify for Podcasters, and we highly recommend you give it a try. Download Spotify for Podcasters app or go to www.spotify.com/podcasters and get started. Because especially these kinds of people that make these kinds of transactions, they have a home life also. They might be selling all this nefarious stuff, but they've got granny somewhere. They've got their family that they're taking care of. Like, I don't know. So this actually does make a lot of sense that people rent these hotel rooms for these big buys. I don't know.
I agree. It's weird, but...
So... he shot out of 15 of the weapons. So he had 24 total. And then he shot out of 15 of them, supposedly. And he used 1,058 rounds. This number changes throughout the narrative, guys.
Mm-hmm.
This number changes.
Hold on to it tightly.
Yeah. He also supposedly killed himself with the revolver. There was that one revolver that he had. ATF reported that the firearms in his hotel, plus all the firearms that they found at his house, because they went, and obviously searched his house. All of them were purchased legally. None of them were illegal. They were either purchased in Nevada, California, Texas, or Utah. Do you have any insight into what those states mean or why? Why he would have weapons from 4 states? Like maybe their gun laws are a little bit lax, or I don't know.
Yeah, or it could be he's getting some of these guns off the internet and they're sending them from where they are to him.
Like maybe he's got a distributor that he works with, or okay.
Or he is a distributor. I don't know if we looked into whether he has his gun selling license, but well, anyway,
he doesn't. He doesn't have a gun selling license, but that doesn't mean he wasn't a distributor. Teaser. So they also found, then obviously they looked at his car, because his car is parked in the garage under the hotel. Mm-hmm. He had ammonium nitrate in his car, which I guess is commonly used to make IEDs. So he had a bunch of that in his trunk. He had 1,600 more rounds of ammunition in his car. I'm just wondering, like, how much of this stuff can you put in your car at one time? Because he had like a sedan. I mean, he didn't have like a great big car. So maybe that would explain why he had to make multiple trips, because he had to get multiple weapons. He had to get all this ammunition there somehow, ammonium nitrate. And then he also had 50 pounds of tannerite, which I haven't really worked much with, but that's what they use for like exploding targets, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen Top Shot, so I know what tannerite is. But
there you go. That's my girl. Here's the thing with tannerite, though. I mean, there's no reason to have tannerite in that room or in his car if he wasn't going to be going to the range, right? Because you're not going to use tannerite unless he was going to use it there at the event. But why did he leave it in his car? And then,
right, and 50 pounds of it. I mean, that's a lot. That's not a little amount.
If I was to give a guess, I would say he was going to be using those weapons to go out somewhere and let people maybe try them on the range with some tannerite. Yeah. I mean, that to me is a more plausible explanation for him having tannerite in his car, because what are you going to explode?
Maybe he was selling them as a package. Like, here, if you come get these weapons, I'll throw in 10 pounds of tannerite, because it's super fun to shoot tannerite with a rifle. Like, and it's a good way for people to know if things are sighted in right and all of that stuff too. Like, I don't know. That seems more plausible to me than he just randomly had 50 pounds of tannerite in the trunk of his car. I don't know.
Yeah.
So the attack, let's go over this a little bit. And again, I know we talked about this in the 9/11 episodes. A false flag does not mean that this stuff didn't happen. It just is a shifting of the blame of who did this, because we know that it happened. We know that people died. It was awful. I mean, I've watched multiple documentaries and it just was awful. So we know that this might seem insensitive to some people that we're just talking about it so matter-of-factly, but I think that getting down to the bottom of why this happened is actually honoring their memory. So that's why we dig into this stuff.
Yep.
So the actual attack occurred between 10:05 and 10:15 p.m. on the last night of the festival, so on October 1st. So this shooting only lasted 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Which, for the carnage, seems like not a long time.
Officially only lasted for that long.
Officially, correct. So then country singer Jason Aldean was performing on stage. Actually, I think in one of the documentaries we watched, the bass player had like a bullet round that went through his guitar or hit his guitar. So it was that, which is weird, because I've always wondered, was Jason Aldean a target? Like, why was he was out front and center? Like, you would have think that he would be hit first, or
yeah,
I don't know. It just seems weird that he wasn't. The stage seemed to be targeted a little bit, but I mean, it just seems so random where all the shots went. Yeah. So, shortly before 10 p.m., this is again the official narrative, the Wikipedia narrative. Jesus Campos, which was a security guard at the Mandalay Bay, he was sent to the 32nd floor to investigate an open door alert. So when you're in Vegas, you leave a door open for too long, they'll send somebody up to make sure that everything's okay, make sure you didn't just accidentally leave your room open with all your valuables inside, because people are obviously inebriated, impaired when they go to Vegas a lot. So then this will come into play later, but they also, obviously, everybody knows they can tell the key card swipes. They know how many times you went in and out of your room with your key card, all of that stuff. That's pretty easy. What I didn't know is that they also have a deadbolt sensor in the rooms. So they can tell when you enter your room with your key card, they can tell, but they can also tell whether you went into your room and engaged the deadbolt or not, which I didn't realize. And they also have heat sensors in the room, so they can tell who's in there, approximately where you are. I mean, they have a lot more, especially these bigger hotels. If you're off the strip, I wouldn't worry about it too much. But most of these hotels on the strip have all of this. Like if you've been to Vegas, they have more information on you than you probably ever thought.
Oh, yeah. It's crazy. And if you think about it, these guys are just trying to extract money out of people. I mean, the whole Vegas experience is for you to go there, have a good time, get inebriated, as you said, and possibly, gush out all kinds of money so that their economy can do well.
And if you're spending too much time in your room, they might have some kind of incentive for you, or they might make it to where when you do go to the casino, maybe you do win a little bit of money so that you're more apt to stay there and spend more money. Like these are all marketing tools, or whatever you want to call it, for people that I guess I didn't realize how techno it was. Like I'm like,
especially at the clubs, there's all kinds of techno going on.
The raving,
but if it makes sense to me, if you've got bad guys owning hotels, which you do, you have a lot of bad dudes. Vegas has a huge reputation for having the mafia there, the mob. Everybody's trying to run that town, and whoever has the most money, whoever has the most control, gets to run that town and make all that money. So these guys are the guys that are buying up these big hotels and then running them the way that a bad guy would run the company to try to extract more money out of you. So the fact that they have all the surveillance on you, have all the surveillance on the tables, have all the surveillance in the hallways and in the rooms. And I'm not saying they're watching you inside your room at all times, that I can prove. But I do know that when we
they
did
have
this
a
research,
rough idea of what's happening in every room at any given time.
Yeah.
So Campos, who was the security guard, he gets up to the 32nd floor and he tries opening this stairwell door, the access door that's closest to the door alarm, and he finds out that he can't open it. So he ends up going a roundabout way, getting up there, and it turns out there was like an L-shaped bracket that was screwed to the door to keep it closed. And now it wasn't a big L-shaped bracket; it was just a little.
No.
Just a little guy.
Pictures of it.
It was nothing
it's
big.
Like
but
2 screws and a little L-shaped bracket, and he's golden.
Yeah, for whatever reason, the security guard didn't want to like just put a little shoulder, a little elbow grease into it and get this door open, because it wouldn't have been hard. It wasn't like it was. Anyway, so he reports to dispatch that he heard what he thought was rapid drilling from room 135, which was the big suite that Paddock had. So, and rapid drilling, I would guess that he's talking about like a DeWalt or something like that. I'm not sure.
Yes.
I don't know the difference between drilling and rapid drilling, I guess. So it's just semantics at this point. Sorry.
I'm not sure either.
Okay. So then at 10:05, he is in the hallway and he gets hit in his right thigh by one of about 35 bullets that come out of this suite. So he's struck through the door, basically.
So whoever's in the room at that time, whether that be Paddock or whomever. is now shooting through the door down the hallway at Campos.
Right.
Okay.
So another thing was he sees a cart outside of Paddock's room with like a food service cart. If you get room service or whatever, they bring it up. And then when you're done, you just put your dirty dishes on it and they wheel it away. So there's a room service cart out there that had a little camera on it. And it turns out the camera wasn't on record. It was just there for like surveillance. So the theory is that Paddock could see Campos coming towards the room. So he fires these 35 rounds through the door, and one of them hits Campos in the leg.
Okay.
So that was at 10:05. So he immediately took cover. He calls hotel security this seemed weird, but he calls hotel security by cell phone and on the radio to tell them he'd been shot with a BB or a pellet gun. Now,
BB or a pellet gun?
Right. And why would you call on the radio and your cell phone? I mean, they have those radios right there for ease, right? Because if something's going down, you want to be able to like, whoop, right there. But he pulls his cell phone out of his pocket or his holster or wherever it was and calls the hotel security, plus lets them know on the radio that he thinks he's been shot by a pellet gun or a BB gun.
Sure.
Seems weird.
I mean, in his defense, maybe his radio was malfunctioning or nobody was answering him on the radio. So then he called because he was seriously injured. Who knows? But it is weird that he would do both. I don't know.
And how do you mistake?
Guy that's used radios for a long time, I know sometimes they just don't work. And so a cell phone
especially
backup
in a big room.
Yeah.
Yeah. What you tell me, I've never obviously been shot, and neither have you. But what's the difference between getting shot with a BB or a pellet gun versus an actual weapon? There's a big difference, right?
Well, yeah, but if you haven't been shot before, it would be weird that you would say, something just sprayed through the room 35 times and thinking that it was a BB gun. But if you look down at a hole in your leg with your pants on and everything, the holes are usually pretty small,
on the front. Yeah.
And I don't know if that was a 5.56, coming out of one of those weapons. That's
I don't think it specifies.
That's a varmint round. I mean, we shoot humans with it in the military, but that's that's considered a small round. And so going through a human leg, it really would be a pretty tiny hole. So he might have thought, this tiny little hole could have been a BB, could have been whatever. But I don't know. It's hard to say that I would have called it a BB gun or whatever unless it came through the door one at a time. But if it came through the door in quick succession and it was quiet, now this is the reason that the BB or everything makes more sense. Because if it came through the door quietly, not sounding like a gun, but sounding like a suppressed gun or a silencer, then it would sound more like a BB gun or something like that. So if somebody was shooting a silenced weapon through the door, it would be not only muffled by the suppressor, but it would be muffled by the door. By the time it got to him, he wouldn't have heard a very loud sound. He would have heard a weird sound that doesn't sound like a gunshot typically. So those are all reasons why he might have thought it was a BB gun or something like that. The hole being really small and, who knows? Could have been suppressed fire by some CIA agent on the other side of the room.
Oh, what? Now you're getting crazy. Now you're getting crazy.
Hold on, we're rolling downhill now.
So the next series of events is a maintenance worker named Stephen Schuck entered the floor to fix the barricaded door. So obviously, because Campos had called it in and said, hey, there's an issue with this door. So this maintenance worker gets there and Campos obviously immediately tells him to call hotel dispatchers on his radio and inform them that there was a shooting and told them to call the police.
I don't remember in the story, but do you remember hearing anything about radio jammers or anything like that used, cell phone jammers or radio frequency jammers? I can't remember that being used either, but that would account for...
because that would cause a lot of havoc. I mean, if they could... But how... I don't know. The whole thing just sounds weird when you really think of how... But then people don't know... You don't know how you're going to react in a traumatic event like this, really.
Yeah.
I don't really know. Who am I to say? But another weird thing was in the room, and I don't know anything about this. You probably do. It was a special hammer that he had that he broke the window with. It was like some kind of a weird, I don't know, would it be like a pickaxe or would it be like a bigger mallet type?
Yeah, I don't know how he broke the window. There's a lot of controversy on the window being broken and when it was broken because... Right. And we'll get into that probably later, but the breaking those windows, a lot of, like we talked about with 9/11, these aren't just regular windows. These aren't like the windows at your house. These are heavily fortified windows that it would take quite a bit of force to break through, and you would have to probably have some sort of a special tool to be able to do that or to get through it.
But couldn't you just use one of 24 assault rifles that you have up there?
Yeah. Why would you use a hammer if you were already going to be shooting out these windows, right? And that's what a lot of people thought at the beginning was he just shot these windows out and then just started shooting. Well, that wasn't the case. He didn't shoot them out. There was a hammer that was used, supposedly in the pictures and everything like that, to get through these windows.
So it was approximately 490 yards from his window to the concert venue. So he started with a few shots, then started firing in bursts that ranged from 80 to 100 rounds. So 80 to 100 rounds at a time. And then there would be a break.
Yeah, and some people think that because of the break in time, that would be him reloading, because he was using the bump stock and everything like that, and shooting from those windows down to the venue area there, the stage area there. You would have had to have some kind of long range rifle to do that. But the thing that is going to be a big deal, coming up along the way is really how this caliber of weapon works. Also the distance that it can cover and the line of sight, stuff like that. But the more important thing is the sound that these weapons make. So these weapons, there's a 308 and there's, I think you said AR-15, AR-10s. There's several different weapons in there. The bigger one, the 308s, probably sound a little heavier. They probably have a little bit more of a whack to them. But they sound pretty similar in how they fire. And then when we get further into this, we're going to hear that people were reporting lots of different sounds coming from lots of different directions. So we just wanted to show you this picture of where he was shooting from and where the venue is, and just to show you that there is this direct line of sight here. But if you see where Jason Aldean would have been standing on this stage, it would be kind of a hard shot to hit anybody on the stage. It is kind of a weird angle. But it would be open season on anybody that was inside this venue if you could hit them from there. But anyway, I don't mean to get gruesome. We're just looking at logistics here. Logistically, it would be hard to hit the stage, as well as some other places farther out, because this is a pretty long shot for somebody that's up in a window on a bipod. He would have to have pretty significant skills to be hitting people from this, especially going full auto. There would be a lot of really lucky shots, in my opinion, from this distance with those weapons. I know a couple of them had scopes on them, and he probably could have dialed in some scope shots and stuff like that, but you'd have to be a pretty good shooter to shoot on full auto like he was, bump stock like he was, and actually hit people from these distances. So that's the reason I bring up this picture, so that people can see that we're not saying that these are impossible shots. We're saying that these are very suspect shots, giving the angle and the distance. So
So the concert goers originally, when he very first started firing, thought that it was like fireworks, because, and this is where a lot of weirdness comes in, which, I mean, we can go over it now or we can wait, but there was a lot of chaos happening. There was people walking around this concert with firecrackers, which is weird.
Random people.
Yeah, they're like, why would, I don't know. It just seems like there was so much chaos going on. Because another thing that they don't talk about in this narrative is all the other shootings that were happening all along the strip. It wasn't just at the Mandalay Bay concert venue area. There was shooting going on from all over the place. Not to mention later on, we'll probably go over it more, but when they were assessing gunshot wounds at this hospital, they were seeing a lot of them were smaller caliber, and they were coming straight in. There wasn't, because this would be a big angle. Like the trajectory of this bullet would cause a pretty significant angle if it was coming from that high, 480 yards on the 23rd floor. That would cause, you could tell a difference, especially with these big rounds. And the people that were coming in had these little, almost like a 22, like a small, a small.
Well, if anybody's ever
wound.
seen like Dexter or NCIS or any of these, like these shows where they go in and they look at the angle of the bullet trajectory and all that stuff that they do on TV with lasers and all this different stuff, you find that bullets really do tell a story after they're fired. And there's nothing you can really do about it. You have to just let the chips fall where they lay. If you're going to shoot somebody straight down, almost like that, you're going to have these really high trajectory coming in from high in the shoulders, high in the head, these high up shots. Or if people are laying down, you might have some more direct hits in the back and the legs, those type of things. But
they're still going to have an angle. They're not going to be a straight on, like from ground level shot.
And they were finding a lot of these. A lot of these wounds look like people have been shot pretty close. And pretty direct.
And people saw guns. I mean, it's really hard to find. Same with the 9/11 stuff. It's really hard to find any of this information because everything has been so scrubbed. I mean, even stuff that was online a year ago is not available now. So it's really difficult to kind of dig in beyond the official narrative. You can find it, and we will put some stuff in the show notes and on our website so that you can, kind of go down this trail also.
Hopefully
alternative theory trail.
Yeah. Hopefully you guys have learned by now that we're not finding the stuff that we're looking for in the normal places that you would normally look for things. Like, we're not Googling this stuff. We're looking at different browsers like Brave browser or DuckDuckGo, or we're going on to these different alternative spaces like Rumble and stuff like that, where people are willing to tell the truth. They're willing to put this stuff on the internet. Whether it gets taken down or not, they just keep setting up new account after new account after new account and just putting it up, because we believe that this information needs to get out there. And there's a lot of people on the internet that have this information. The same with, if you guys aren't on the Fringy Telegram, you should really get on that chat, because during our 9/11 series, I was dropping bombs on there. So much information.
You can't say dropping bombs.
There's so many.
Bad pun.
I know. Sorry about that. There's so many videos and pictures and things that we post on there and on Instagram that are just showing you that the things that we're saying are true. They are real anomalies. They are real issues, and they are like the videos with 9/11. They exist. There are videos that exist that I've posted that have no planes in them whatsoever. Zero. And people saw it on the ground. But talking about this event, there are lots of people that have, they've called 911, and there are recordings that have been subpoenaed, and they had to sue. We're getting a little ahead of ourselves, but this is kind of just setting up our next episode, because we're going to start getting into a lot of that stuff on the next episode. But after we've laid the ground for the official narrative, then we'll start to go into what are the things that the people that were there were saying. Because we know that when the internet tells us something, or when the mainstream media tells us something, we have to be leery about what we believe. Our parents used to tell us, don't believe everything you read. And, we've kind of lost that, because these news reporters and these journalists, they over time kind of developed themselves as the authority, right? You have these authorities over you that they know and you don't, right? Well, that's different now. We don't live that way anymore. We're kind of abandoning as a culture this media type of empire. And we're going out and we're finding the information ourselves as citizen journalists.
We're tired of people telling us that we shouldn't believe the things that we're seeing.
Yeah.
It's like, no, I saw it with my own eyes. Like, you can't talk me out of what I saw. So there's a lot of people that were working at other casinos. There was, tons of people that were like, there was a shooting in this casino. I saw it with my own eyes. Like,
yeah. And it was like 2 hours crazy after the main event.
Yeah, it was like pretty much that whole evening. There was like weirdness after weirdness after weirdness, which I'm sure is just Vegas on any given night, but
not the gunshots.
Not to this degree without the gunshots. Yeah.
Yes, there were half naked people. Yes, there was debauchery, but we're talking about shootings on the Vegas Strip coming from every different direction, just to cause mass chaos and confusion. And
that's what I think. Yeah.
And then you have to ask yourself why. And that's what we're going to get into on the next episode, when we start unraveling all of these anomalies, all of these issues.
There's so much more.
Yeah, we got to get into how many people were staying in his room. That's interesting. We got to get into all of the stuff that they were ordering and room service. That's pretty telling. So there's
a little known fact that I had no idea until I started really digging into this. Paddock actually shot from his room. He shot 8 bullets into the airport, which was next door, into the fuel tank. There's a jet fuel tank. Speaking of jet fuel, I know we made a big deal of that on 9/11, but
weird.
Here's jet fuel again. That, by the way, didn't explode. He shoots 8 rounds into this jet fuel tanker that's at the airport, and so immediately all flights are grounded at that point. But two of the bullets hit the tanker. One of them actually penetrated all the way through into the jet fuel. and nothing happened. But why? Why was he shooting at a jet fuel tanker at the airport? That doesn't make any sense. And why did we not hear about that at all? I heard nothing about that.
Yep.
Not a single thing. Even, I mean, when we flew into Vegas, we didn't fly into this airport. We flew into a different one, right?
Yeah.
Because this is McCarran Airport that's right next door. So that's where it was 2,000 feet away also.
Yeah.
So the concert
shot.
venue is 400 and something feet down. And like you were saying, it's really hard to, dial in a target if you're not really experienced. And especially if you're shooting 80 to 100 rounds, like
bump stock,
boom, 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 boom.
Yeah, get out of here.
How do you shoot 2,000 feet and actually hit the tanker? And why?
Yeah,
like,
somebody had some skill to shoot 2,000 feet and actually hit that thing, and it didn't explode or do what it was seemingly intended to do, but it did cause some confusion and it did cause some real serious uproar. But what would have a real big explosion would have caused, in that area? People would have been really freaking out at that point.
Right.
So it just seems
there's way more that we'll get into next time about the whole flight situation that was going on that we never heard about. There was people calling in from a helicopter company and saying basically we've been taken over and they're taking our helicopters, and somebody was shot there.
What happened to all the helicopters? Why were they turning off their transponders? There's so much more to talk about. So
much more.
And we hope you guys come back for the next episode that is going to be dropping next week. But for now, we're going to get out of here. This is Rick and Kristen from That's So Fringy Podcast. Yes. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. All of this information is good information. We need to be thinking for ourselves. We need to be digging in, working together as one family, trying to root out the evil of this world and put an end to it, as Jesus would ask us to do. And so
to remind you, we say like, subscribe, share, and all of that stuff, but you can get a lot of information about current events that are happening by going back and listening to podcasts from that time. So if you go back and listen to the podcasts, there's podcasts out there of just daily news. They just get on there and they read the newspaper of what's going on today in the world. Yeah. So you can get on there from October 2nd of 2017, find just a news thing. And if they talk about the Vegas shooting, there's a good chance that there's some information in there that is now scrubbed. So if we can get this information out there via podcast, because we don't have as much restriction as some of these other platforms do, this is a good way to share this stuff, if for no other reason than the information is out there.
Yeah.
In podcast form.
And hats off to Spotify for not giving us any hassles. I mean, we've had a couple of things, but nothing major. And so hats off to Spotify and the Spotify leadership for letting us have a voice. We really appreciate that. And you'll probably never hear that, but thank you anyway. That being said, we're going to get out of here, and we hope that you stay tuned for the next episode. This is Rick and Kristen, and we are out of here.
Out of here.
Bye.
Bye.